Hey guys, we're doing something a little bit different today because we're in London and I'm with Sid. And today we're actually going to do a book review on his book, if I'm honest, if you would come into the frame. Maybe I need to stand a bit ahead,
go
like
a little
that.
bit ahead of me, I'll walk behind you.
Alright, so today we're in London and we're doing a little bit of a walk and talk about Sid's new book, if I'm honest. I literally read it in one day. It's like such an easy read. It's so heartfelt. And if you know Sid, it's like he's actually talking to you like the whole time. It feels like you're in a conversation with him. So if you haven't read it, you can get it on Amazon in the UK. You can get it from any bookstores in India. And can you get it worldwide on Amazon?
Yeah, you can get it worldwide on Amazon.
Worldwide on Amazon. So yeah, here we are. Are you excited? Is this your first book review?
No.
Oh,
it's,
thought I was getting exclusive access.
No, well, you are getting exclusive. The first one I've done in London, for sure.
Okay, nice.
But yeah, no, it's always nice chatting about the book and being able to continue just, you know, in general, shining a light on mental health. And I know that's something that's very important to you and close to your heart. And
it is.
It's just great to continue having those sorts of conversations with people and do things like this.
I think the thing that stood out to me in the book, and I think people who don't know you and just know the kind of external part of your life, and you mentioned this in the book as well when they said, well, you have everything, you know, why on earth would you suffer from mental health issues? And you talked around how mental health doesn't discriminate.
I think that it's easy to make judgments on people based on what we see on the outside, right? And we very quickly, let's turn left here, we very quickly can see someone from the outside and see their life and automatically make assumptions that, oh, well, you know, from a material point of view, they've got everything, so what could possibly be wrong for them? And, you know, there's definitely judgments I've had aimed at me through my life, and I think the point I was trying to make is that whether you are rich, poor, black, white, Chinese, Asian, European, Muslim, Hindu, Christian, male, female, non-binary, whatever it is, mental health doesn't discriminate, and everyone is susceptible to suffering from issues of mental health and going through the same things.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that it's so interesting you mentioned the point around your dad when you were trying to have a conversation with him. And he said, oh, well, Sid, I just realised you're really sensitive. And I get that at me a lot when people just be like, well, you're really sensitive. And growing up, I used to kind of defend it and was like, no, I'm not. And now I like how I'm like, yeah, I am. I embrace it. And actually being sensitive, it allows me to understand other people's perspectives. It allows me to understand other people's emotions a lot more than somebody who perhaps isn't. And I guess it's so interesting because our parents' generation, I think they didn't have a lot of money. Well, my parents were immigrants, and I think for a lot of Asian parents in the UK, they were immigrants. And because they didn't have a lot of money, they valued money as like the most important thing.
Yeah.
And so when they would look at your life, they would think, well, because you have money, then how could you be unhappy? And I think that there's so much that's deeper underneath that surface.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, if you look at our parents' generation, it's money, but it's also to do with the fact that they grew up in a time where there wasn't really much attention paid to mental health or mental well-being or any of these things. So their kind of view on it is very different because it's a limited knowledge of what it actually entails. But yeah, I mean, you know, coming to being sensitive, it's embracing vulnerability. I think, you know, like surrender, sensitive, vulnerability. You told me those 10 years ago when I was 24, I would have slapped you. I would have been like, what are you talking about? Like, I would have got, you know, my tail between my legs and the guard would have come up, and even 3 years ago. Yeah. Because the way that we're taught is that all those sorts of words have connotations of weakness. Surrender is waving the white flag and surrendering in war, when it's not actually the case at all. Actually, when you look at it, words like surrender and vulnerability and letting the guard down or whatever, that's actually where real strength comes from.
Why'd you say that?
Well, because it's embracing, it's kind of taking the guard off, right? And basically standing there without any armor on. And just being who you are. Just being who you are and embracing that, and embracing the fact that it's okay to feel these things, and that we don't always have to defend ourselves.
And another interesting point that you said in the book was that I think back in the day, the man's role was to kind of provide for the family and look after them in a financial way. And then the woman's role was to kind of look after you from an emotional perspective, right? Look after the family, you know, take care of how you were feeling. And so your dad didn't feel that responsibility or didn't maybe understand why you felt that he wasn't providing for you?
Yeah, that's definitely, you know, again, as I said in the book, I don't want to generalize on this point, but it's definitely a perspective that I was introduced to by by someone.
We're going somewhere, we don't know where we're going.
By an Indian woman who actually said to me, and she said, look, you didn't grow up in India, so you may not know this, but she says, from my experience, the men have always had, as you said, their job is, their duty is, they believe is to provide. So as long as there's food on the table, a roof over the head, clothes on the body, they feel like they've done their job.
Right.
And, you know, I, as I said, I don't want to generalize and say this is all Indians, because it's wrong to generalize. Yeah. But I think that mentality, I would speak to my dad, definitely was something that I could probably see in him. Okay. And, you know, as far as he's concerned, he did everything he did. And actually he did. He's done more and beyond what a parent has to do for a family in terms of...
Yeah. I mean, it's...
financial side and stuff like that.
It's really interesting because actually I was reflecting on my own experience, and I think everyone does their best, you know? And I don't think anyone intends as a parent or even as a child... I don't think anyone intends as a parent or a child to hurt their parents or their children, right? Or whoever. I think everyone is new to the thing. Like your dad was new as a parent. I think we'll make mistakes as parents. And I think it's really hard as a kid to process that. And what I think is so great about your book is that you just processed all of these feelings and you've done that work to understand them. And the main thing I really realized is that you can't expect everyone to understand your viewpoint. And you can't explain to every single person how you feel. And I'm starting to feel like that now because I feel that my whole life. If I'm telling someone about something, I need them to understand how I'm feeling.
Yeah, because you're looking for some sort of
validation.
And
100%.
I was the same. And I think that's the next step in any sort of self-work journey is... I think all of us experience this. That we go on this journey and we read all of this and our eyes are open to this new way of thinking and this new way of living that we didn't know before, and we start thinking that wow. And then we sort of expect everyone to be like, come on, do you not understand it? Do you not understand it? Forgetting that everyone is on their own journey, working through things at their own pace. And I know for me, a lot of the frustration would come from, but why can't you see it my way? And then actually the next step in the journey is being like, well, you don't need to see it my way. 100%. I don't need your validation to prove that what I've come up with is right. And actually, I don't need to necessarily change you to see things my way, because that is also a form of working out of the ego, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. We always constantly, I think, seek other people's validation. And I think it's so easy in the digital age for us to do that. So if we put something up and somebody likes it, we almost feel like, oh, well, they get me, and so why can't you get me, right? Like,
yeah, and it's like I give you a small example on a different scale. It was a couple of years ago. Like this is when I was going through my real clean eating phase, no sugar, dairy, all of this stuff. And my grandmother, who's, let's just say, is old, but still very fit.
Right.
She's like, well, should I be, you know, changing my diet? Should I be doing all of these things? Now, I easily could have been like, yeah, oh my God, I'm not like, you shouldn't be eating dairy, you shouldn't be eating gluten, you shouldn't be eating this, you shouldn't be eating that, see it my way.
Yes.
But then I'm like, well, hang on a second. Quite clearly what you've been doing for however many years has been working for you.
Right.
So keep doing what works for you. And I think that's the important thing. That's a nice segue here, because that's an important thing when it comes to mental health, is that your journey, my journey, your viewers' journeys, everyone's different. And do what works for you. This is something that one of my spiritual kind of guess, teachers taught me not too long ago was there was this thing that came up. There's this really good sparkling water in LA called Topo Chicos. And since I stopped drinking, I've become this like sparkling water like connoisseur.
Okay, I've never even heard of that.
I love it. The bubbles are great, everything. But then someone was like, oh my God, we read a review that there's some chemical in Topo Chicos, you shouldn't drink it, it's bad for your body, da, 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 da. And I was like, don't tell me that, like...
I don't want to know.
And then what my spiritual teacher said is, we've got to stop reading everything at face value and figure out what works for us. Just because that chemical might not work for X doesn't mean it's not going to work for Y. And if you start looking at things like that about what works for me, not what I'm told works for me.
Right.
I think, and then this can be applied to any sort of area in life, right?
Right.
Is that if you find out what works for you and create your own system.
Yeah.
And this is miraculously tied back into the book, because I even say that at the end. It's when it comes to self-work, go and study and read and do all of this Eckhart Tolle, Michael Singer, Deepak Chopra, all this stuff.
Right.
Then find the bits that work for you and find the bits that don't work for you. Get rid of the things that don't work for you and hold on to what does work for you. And I think everything in life can be tailor-made to what suits us.
You said that about meditation as well. And I remember when we spoke on the podcast, it's a bit noisy here actually, isn't it?
Yeah, do you want to pause for a minute?
Shall we pause?
Yeah. We'll go just down. Alright,
we're back on.
Alright.
We didn't know where we were going and it's really noisy because we're just walking in Central.
Walking around London.
Well, we are just like walking and talking, and everyone's looking at us.
Do you know
thinking,
what's quite nice?
What on earth are you doing?
Let this car go by, and I want to make a point. Is that so? We've walked from Baker Street down Marylebone High Street. We're in Mayfair, we're in all these different places, and it's a Sunday while this is being shot. So we're seeing a number of different people out and about. And what's interesting is that everyone we see right now, we're seeing from the outside. And I know that's going to be like, no, duh. But the point I'm trying to make is that you see people walking around, smiles on their faces, looking happy, looking content and everything. But we do not know what's going on inside. We do not know what that person's struggling with. We do not know if that smile that they've got on is a legitimate smile or if it's a smile that's hiding pain that's going on underneath. And it's just so interesting. I'd implore everyone to do this, actually. That's one thing they teach us in acting, is become a great people watcher. You don't have to become some sort of stalker. But take an interest when you actually see people. Really look at them, and you'll be able to tell quickly if it's, you know, is there something else going on there? Is there something deeper going on there? And actually try to get to know people on a more deeper level than just what we see on the outside.
You mentioned that in your book, actually, when you were in Ibiza, right? Or and you said that you were like laughing and smiling and you were having a great time, but actually inside you felt awful.
Yeah.
And I think so many people feel that way. And then when they try to tell people, they say, well, you were fine. Like, you looked great. So, you know, how come you're now feeling all of these emotions? And you're almost questioned on it, aren't you, as to why you're putting on a brave face?
Exactly. And we can't make judgments of people. I'll give you an example right now. You go down the street, and some of the happiest people you will see with the biggest smiles on their face are actually people who are homeless.
It's true.
Right? You've seen it. We've all seen it. Then take, for example, someone like Robin Williams.
Yeah.
If you asked people, does Robin Williams have a good life? 99% of people would have said yes.
Yeah.
He's a global superstar. He's an Oscar winner. He's worth millions of dollars. And not only that, he's a comedian. Right? What could possibly be wrong in his life? And what happens? The man commits suicide. So, point being that, again, let's go through Grosvenor Square.
We're just like
so this used to be
zigzagging
behind us. This used to be the US Embassy. Now they've gone and broke it down. And I don't know what.
It's a nice little London tour too.
But yeah, they. So the point being is that if you ask someone, you put a homeless guy next to Robin Williams, and you tell them who has a better life, I guarantee you the majority of people will be like Robin Williams. Duh, obviously. But then how is it that some of the homeless people look at the happiest in the world and Robin Williams went and committed suicide? Point being is that we just don't know what's going on beneath the surface. And
everyone has a different definition of happiness.
Of course. So let's look at this a little bit broader, because I think this is a very generational thing. And I think what we see is that people who come from a generation anyway find it hard to understand what the youth are going through.
Right.
And you look at people during this is the point. You look at people. You've seen certain things during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Where you've seen like 95-year-old great grandparents being like, you kids can't sit at home in quarantine for 5 minutes. We lived through 2 world wars, right? You see that?
So true.
You know what? In their mind, they are correct. They are correct because all they have to compare stuff to is to what they went through in their life.
Right.
So what's their point of reference? Their point of reference is, well, we went through 2 world wars and not complaining. Why are you complaining about being locked down for 2 weeks, right? Now, of course, the 18-year-old millennial didn't live through those wars, so doesn't have that experience to compare the pandemic to.
Right.
So I think everything's to do with, you know, for sure, your parents could be like, what have you got to be sad about? We couldn't even buy a bottle of Coke.
Right.
Their parents could turn around and say something. So everyone's got something on the next, right? But I don't think that makes what you're going through or what the younger person's going through any less valid. Is that just because someone may have perceivably had it harder doesn't invalidate what you've gone through.
Yes, 100%. We spoke about this on the podcast, actually.
Yeah.
Just because your pain is different from someone else's, it doesn't mean that it's got less significance. Pain is pain. And I think that we are taught that, you know, let's say my dog died, that could be the hardest thing for me. Gosh, I feel sad even saying that. I don't know why I used that example.
No,
I didn't mean to use that example.
No, but it's true.
But that could be like the hardest thing that's happened to me, but someone could lose somebody else in their life, and that could be the hardest thing for them. And if we both told the same person, and I think people do this a lot. Like, I know this person went through that, but this person had it so much harder. Right? And we compare it directly, and I think that's actually really wrong, because we should listen to that person in that moment telling us about their pain rather than us trying to tally it up. Yeah, exactly, and tally it up.
It's not a competition, is it?
Yeah, I know, but everything, I think, in this day and age is compared with someone else's, even successes, you know? When someone says...
Successes, failures, and also now, like, mental work, everything's about showing.
One of the things I really want to talk to you about, and I think people who are watching this are going to benefit from, is setting boundaries. So setting boundaries is something that I am really passionate about, only because I never used to. And like you said, anything that you hold in, it comes out in a different way. So if you're not explaining to somebody why you're feeling a certain way, then years and years of resentment can build up, and you can just not say anything. So setting boundaries is like super, super important to me. But you talk about in your book setting them with your grandma.
Yeah.
How did you do that? Someone who's 2 generations above you, wanting you to go into the family business, talking to you about every day about the struggles that's happening in the news with your dad. You know, a lot of people...
Well, how did I do it? I'll answer you with that with great difficulty. To the point, because she doesn't get it. Like, also, it's to a point where I won't engage in the conversation. That's it.
Right.
I will, you know, I won't be anything. I'll be like, oh, I have to go somewhere. I just won't do it. I won't engage.
Right.
I don't need to give anyone I don't need to give her a reason or anything. And of course, you know, at her age and whatever, her memory and stuff like that maybe isn't as sharp as it was.
Right.
Still sharper than probably 99% of people.
Right.
But, you know, I think that it's setting boundaries, and then I don't feel like one needs to justify or keep, you know, talking about them when it's done. Set the boundary and that's it.
But I think a lot of people would think, as an older child, and you're kind of the only son, that you're almost being selfish by not understanding your grandma's pain, and she's struggling to hear all of this stuff.
I'm not saying I didn't understand my grandmother's pain. I am understanding my grandmother's pain, and I'm taking a stance based on what's best, A, for my well-being, but also best for her well-being, because I know that indulging her and talking about this and putting her into a negative mindset isn't actually helping her at all. And I'm doing what I genuinely actually think is best, not just for me, but for her in this situation.
And like there's that saying, you know, you can't fill a glass if your glass is empty. So if you're not giving yourself that time to process and digest and focus on your mental well-being, then you obviously can't support her. But I think that's for a lot of people. They find it difficult to set a boundary with a loved one, because that loved one will say, well, you're not actually listening to me, or you're not here as a sounding board for me. But you can't be a sounding board for everyone, and you have to understand your own boundaries and how much you can take. And I think that is really difficult and something that I really admire.
I remember an ex-girlfriend said to me once, she's like, why do you have to be everyone's agony aunt? And at the time I was like, no, I brushed it off or whatever. But actually now there's some merit to it.
Right.
Which is, but I'm also like you. I love being there for people. I love helping people. And if I don't, I feel guilty. But then what I realized is like, if I'm only helping my grandmother out, when I say helping, out of feelings of guilt, I'm not doing it for the right reasons, and I'm not doing it actually to help me or to help her.
Right. And I think we've got this conception of like, if you're not there for everybody 24/7, then you're selfish. And I think that's totally wrong. And something I've actually processed recently is that, you know, sometimes ignorance is bliss, and not allowing somebody to infiltrate your mind with negative thoughts and negative things can actually help you protect yourself and also protect them, like you said, because you're not entertaining that conversation as well for her. So it allows her to actually put a stop to it and actually just not talk about those things as well. Okay, we've moved on to a little bit of a quieter area. One of the things I want to talk about, which I think I was also a bit confused about how to act on, was when you said you need to break self-work down into two pieces, self and work.
Yeah, I wrote that because I think so many people think that, oh, it's easy for it's easy for you to feel this way or to have this mindset, but it's not easy for all of us. And I was like, look, this is no magic trick. I'm not some superhero here with anything. I don't have any greater ability than you do. I just took ownership of my life and did the work. And if you want to do the same thing, you can. It's like someone who's overweight and complaining to someone who's thin, who's been going to the gym, being like, oh, well, no, you could do the same thing, right? It's just about taking ownership of your life. And yeah, when we look at self-work, we break the word down into, should go here and cross.
Yeah, let's cross. How are you?
Yeah. You break the word down into two words. You've got self and work, which means firstly, self, it should be focused on you. Like I mentioned earlier, this is what works for you, not for anyone else. What works for someone else doesn't have to necessarily work for you, and what works for you doesn't have to work for someone else. So take the bits and tailor-make the process for yourself. You don't owe anything to anyone else. You're not answerable to anyone else. That's the self part. This is you. You're the number one focus. And the second work is work in that, like anything in life, if you want to see results, you got to put in the effort.
Right.
And is it work in the traditional sense, like when we were at school and work, we didn't enjoy it? No, it doesn't have to be like that as well, but it does require effort. Maybe self-effort would be a better term, but it's not a magic trick. It's the more you put in, the more you're going to get out.
And how would you start? So like you talk about some of the things that work for you, like meditation, running, walking, like we're doing now.
All that sort of stuff, yeah.
How do you start to understand what works for you and how you could get yourself out of a rut?
Well, I think it's a trial and error process, right? I think you need to try a number of different things. A, to find out what works, but also to see what doesn't work with you. And you take meditation, for example. There are so many different types of meditation out there. And for me, it was just a matter of trying out a number of different styles,
like techniques. Walking in this beautiful park.
Yeah, even like this. Like,
so nice.
I think sometimes people forget that walking and what we're doing right now is also a form of meditation.
Yeah.
You know, you don't have to go and sit on a Tibetan hill and chant Om for 22 hours a day to meditate. You could do that. That's also
not the only way.
It's not the only way. And I think the more you try, the more you can find out what does work for you and what doesn't work for you, and it's easier to make decisions based on that.
I think your whole book is just so heartfelt, and it is like written without any judgment, and it's written without any sort of preaching, and I think that's what you kind of wanted to get across, was like, it's not a self-help book. No. It's not the way that, you know, it's going to transform your life. Here are some of the things that have helped me.
It's not the way.
Yeah.
Because there isn't a way. Right? There's like, I always say that if you want to go to a destination, right? There's usually 100 different routes you can take to get there. Some will be quicker, some will be shorter, some will be bumpier, some will be smoother, some will be more scenic, some will be less scenic. Ultimately, they will all get you to where you want to go.
Right.
And it's just about finding what works for you and taking the route that works for you. And that was what I was very adamant about in my book, is that this isn't a self-help book. This isn't the Sid Mallya way to happiness. This is just a collection of things that I've discovered during my own journey, and a collection of things that I found to be helpful for me, where it's like, hey, look, this has worked for me. Maybe this could work for you, and if it doesn't, cool, then you know what doesn't work for you. Right,
and it's all about trying, and I think that was one of the things that you put across as well, is just try different things.
I can sit for a minute if you want.
Yeah, shall we actually? Yeah, I think the thing you wrote in the book was just try different things, you know, explore different options, reach out for help. Wow, you've got the sunlight on your face and I just don't.
No, you've got a natural glow.
Just so unfair, isn't it?
We can switch seats.
I'm joking, it's fine. But yeah, I think this was a really nice way to review the book, and I really enjoyed reading it. Like I said, you can download it on Audible. Have you done an Audible?
Not yet.
Version?
You get it on Kindle.
Okay.
Audible should be coming. Well, I'll tell you one thing though. What's nice about this is that most of my interviews for the book, because of obviously pandemic and everything, have been over Zoom.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely one for human interaction and connection, and actually being able to do something with another human. It does help a lot, and
it does.
I think that I'm sure everyone's learned over the last 2 years the value of human connection. So yeah, it's nice to have been able to do this.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it, and I really enjoy reading your book. So if you haven't got it, if you haven't downloaded it, you can download it on a Kindle, you can buy it on Amazon worldwide, and you can get it from the bookshops in India. Hopefully we'll be able to get it on the bookshops here. But thank you to everyone who's watched this, and if you are going through something at the moment, you know, you can reach out to me. My DMs are open, and I will do my best to help you. I'm not a mental health professional, but sometimes it just helps to talk to someone. So
yeah, and to know you're not alone.
Absolutely. So yeah, thank you all for watching. If you liked the video, please press like, subscribe for more, and I'll see you soon. Bye.
Bye.